Hello, everyone, and welcome to UniHouse Academy. I am your host, Karen, and I am so happy to have you here with us today. If you are looking to improve your English in a way that feels natural and fun, you have come to the right place. At UniHouse Academy, we believe that the best way to learn a language is through immersive storytelling and consistent practice. By listening to our episodes regularly, you are training your ears to understand different rhythms and tones, which is one of the most effective ways to boost your listening and speaking skills. When you shadow these scripts, meaning you repeat what I say as I say it, you build the muscle memory needed for natural fluency and gain the confidence to speak in real-life situations. Before we dive into today's very important topic, I want to take a quick moment to ask you to subscribe to our channel and press the like button. Your support helps us create more high-quality content for learners all over the world, and it ensures you never miss a lesson on your journey to mastering English. Today, we are going to explore a question that many of you ask. Is English actually difficult to speak? And more importantly, why do so many people study for years but still struggle to become fluent? Let's start our journey together right now.
Many people around the world feel frustrated because they have spent a long time sitting in classrooms, yet they still feel like they are standing behind a wall when they try to speak English. They know the words. They know the grammar rules, but when it is time to open their mouths, the words just do not come out. This leads to a very common belief that English is a very difficult language to master. But is that really true? If we look at the numbers, English has a very large vocabulary, and the spelling can sometimes feel like a puzzle that does not make any sense. However, compared to many other languages, English grammar is actually quite simple. We do not have complex gender systems for objects, and our verb conjugations are much easier than in many other European or Asian languages. So, if the language itself is not the main problem, what is the real reason why most people are not fluent? To understand this, we need to look at how we learn and how we think about mistakes. Often, the biggest obstacle is not the language itself, but the way our brains have been trained to process it. We focus so much on being correct that we forget the primary purpose of any language, which is to connect with other human beings and share our thoughts.
Let me tell you a story about a woman named Maria. Maria lived in a beautiful small town and had a very successful career. She was a very smart person who had studied English for over 10 years in school and at private academies. She could pass every written test with a perfect score. She knew exactly when to use the present perfect tense and could explain the difference between will and going to better than many native speakers. Her notebooks were filled with neat rows of vocabulary words and complex grammar diagrams. She felt very proud of her knowledge until the day she had to travel to London for a business conference. On the plane, she felt confident. She had her dictionary and her grammar books in her bag. She thought to herself that after 10 years of hard work, speaking English would be easy. But as soon as she stepped off the plane and heard the fast, rhythmic speech of the people at the airport, her heart began to beat very fast. The English she heard did not sound like the English in her textbooks. It was faster, it was messy, and it was full of expressions she had never seen on a test paper. This was the first time Maria realized that knowing a language is very different from using a language. The next morning, Maria went to a small coffee shop near her hotel. She had practiced her order in her head many times. She wanted a large latte with extra sugar. She walked up to the counter, But when the barista looked at her and said, "Morning, what can I get for you today?" Maria froze. Her mind went completely blank. She started thinking about the grammar. Should she say, "I would like," or "can I have"? Is latte a countable noun? Should she use an article? While she was busy analyzing the rules in her head, the silence became very uncomfortable. The barista smiled kindly, but Maria felt a wave of heat rush to her face. She felt like a failure. She eventually managed to point at a picture on the menu and whisper a few words, but she left the shop feeling very sad. She thought, "I have studied for 10 years and I cannot even buy a coffee." This is what I call the grammar trap. It is a situation where your brain is so busy trying to be perfect that it stops you from being functional. Maria's problem was not a lack of knowledge, it was a lack of practice in real-time communication. She was treating English like a math problem to be solved, rather than a tool to be used. Why does this happen to so many people? The reason is that most traditional school systems teach English as a subject, like history or science, rather than a skill, like swimming or playing the piano. In school, you are often punished for making mistakes. If you use the wrong preposition on a test, you lose points. This creates a deep fear of being wrong. When you are afraid of making mistakes, your brain enters a state of high filter. This means you are constantly checking everything you say before you say it. This internal editor is very slow. Speaking, however, happens very fast. By the time you have checked your grammar, the conversation has moved on. Most people are not fluent because they are trying to speak perfectly from day one. They think that if they make a mistake, people will think they are not intelligent. But the truth is that native speakers make mistakes all the time. We use slang, we break rules, and we often start sentences without knowing how they will end. The goal of speaking is not to be a walking textbook. The goal is to deliver a message. When you stop worrying about the how and start focusing on the what, your fluency begins to grow naturally because you are finally allowing yourself to communicate.
While Maria was at the conference, she met a man named Leo. Leo was from a different country, and his English was, technically, quite poor. He made mistakes in almost every sentence. He forgot to put S on his verbs, and he used the wrong tenses constantly. However, Leo was the most popular person at the conference. He was always talking, laughing, and sharing ideas. People understood him perfectly because he used his hands, his facial expressions, and his limited vocabulary to get his point across. Maria watched him in amazement. She realized that Leo was not afraid. He did not care if he said, "I go," instead of "I went." He only cared that the person he was talking to understood his idea. Leo had what Maria lacked: communicative confidence. He understood that English is a bridge between two people, not a wall to be climbed. He was not trying to impress anyone with his grammar. He was trying to connect with them. This was a huge turning point for Maria. She saw that her 10 years of perfect grammar were useless if she was too afraid to use them, while Leo's 6 months of bad English were incredibly powerful because he was brave enough to speak.
So, is English difficult? The answer is both yes and no. It is difficult if you try to master every rule before you start speaking. It is difficult if you think you must sound like a movie star or a professor. But English is actually very easy if you treat it like a game. English is a very flexible language. You can make many mistakes and people will still understand you. In fact, English is one of the most forgiving languages in the world. Because it is spoken by so many people from so many different cultures, there is no single correct way to speak it. There are hundreds of different accents and styles. Most people who speak English globally are not native speakers. This means that when you speak, you are likely talking to someone who also had to learn the language just like you. They are not judging your grammar, they are listening to your story. The difficulty of English is mostly psychological. It is the pressure we put on ourselves to be perfect. Once you let go of that pressure, you will find that you already know enough words to have a basic conversation. You just need to give yourself permission to be imperfect and focus on the joy of sharing your thoughts with others.
How can you move from being like Maria to being more like Leo? The secret is a change in your daily habits. Instead of just reading books, you need to start training your ears and your mouth. This is why shadowing is so important. When you shadow a native speaker, you are not just learning words, you are learning the music of the language. You are learning where to pause, which words to emphasize, and how to flow from one thought to the next. You should also try to listen to English every single day, even if it is just for 15 minutes. Listen to podcasts like this one, watch videos, or listen to music. The more you hear the language, the more natural it will feel. Another great strategy is to talk to yourself. Describe what you are doing while you cook dinner or get ready for work. This helps you find the gaps in your vocabulary in a safe environment where no one is watching. Most importantly, you must find opportunities to speak with others. Do not wait until you are ready, because you will never feel 100% ready. Fluency is a journey, not a destination. You become fluent by speaking, not by preparing to speak. Every mistake you make is actually a sign of progress.
Maria decided to change her approach. She stopped carrying her grammar books everywhere and started listening to English stories while she walked in the park. She began to repeat the phrases she heard, mimicking the tone and the emotion of the speakers. When she went back to the coffee shop, she did not practice her sentence for 10 minutes. She just walked up, smiled, and said, "Hi, one large latte, please." She made a small mistake with her change, but she laughed it off and kept talking. Slowly, her fear began to melt away. She realized that the more she spoke, the easier it became. By the end of her trip, she had made 3 new friends from different countries. They did not care about her grammar scores, they liked her personality and her ideas. Maria finally understood that fluency is not about knowing 10,000 words, it is about being comfortable with the 1,000 words you already know. She felt a sense of freedom she had never felt before. English was no longer a scary monster. It was a key that opened doors to new friendships and new experiences. She was finally fluent, not because her English was perfect, but because her communication was successful and her heart was open.
As we come to the end of today's episode, I want you to remember Maria's story. If you feel stuck, or if you feel like English is too hard, remember that you are likely doing better than you think. You do not need to be perfect to be a great communicator. You just need to be brave and keep practicing every day. Thank you so much for joining me here at UniHouse Academy. I hope this story has inspired you to keep going and to be kind to yourself as you learn. Remember, every time you listen and shadow these scripts, you are taking a big step toward your goals. We are here to support you every step of the way. If you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful, please do not forget to subscribe to our channel and share it with your friends who are also learning English. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep this academy growing. Keep practicing, Keep speaking, and most importantly, keep believing in yourself. You have the power to become a confident English speaker, and we are so proud of the progress you are making. I am Karen, and I look forward to seeing you in our next lesson. Until then, happy learning and have a wonderful day ahead.